When you think about theme parks, you probably envision thrilling coasters and amazing dark rides. But today, we're shining a spotlight on a type of attraction that doesn't often get the coverage it deserves. One of Universal's most iconic shows. It's a spectacle that showcases the might of Cyberdyne systems and immerses you in the world of the future. When Universal Studios comes up in discussion, I'm sure barely anyone mentions these shows they've offered throughout the years, such as Fear Factor, The Horror Makeup Show, Twister, and until 2017, Bill & Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure, available during Halloween Horror Nights. While these shows were all unique in their own way, and they had something to offer guests in terms of variety, there is one show that remains the most unforgettable.
The future is coming after you, ruthlessly, relentlessly, engulfing you, overwhelming you, until it ultimately terminates you. And only one thing can save you.
I said I'd be back.
Terminator 2, 3D Battle Across Time. An incredible new way to ride the movies, only at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time acts as a mini-sequel to the hit film Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which was released on July 3, 1991, and went on to gross $520 million. The attraction was originally slated for release only in the Orlando park on April 27, 1996, but was later expanded with a second installation in the Hollywood park on May 6, 1999, before getting a third installation in Universal Studios Japan, opening with the park on March 31, 2001. Initially, James Cameron, the director and one of the creators of the Terminator franchise, was skeptical about Universal's plan to adapt the movie into an attraction. However, upon learning more about the project, Cameron was thoroughly impressed with how it captured the essence of the film and expanded on its universe. He decided to assist with the filming of the future scenes, and after seeing the final product, Cameron was pleased with the outcome. The video portion saw the return of Arnold Schwarzenegger as the T-800, Edward Furlong as a young John Connor, Lyndall Hamilton as Sarah Connor, and Robert Patrick as the T-1000. The attraction became an instant hit, finding a perfect blend of practical effects, live actors, and 3D screen technology. For this attraction, I'll be approaching things a bit differently than usual. Unlike most attractions where the story is laid out to guests beforehand, the narrative of Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time unfolds as the experience progresses. Therefore, I'll be describing the attraction's walkthrough and then the attraction experience. Guests enter the Cyberdyne Systems building, where they are greeted by a company representative named Kimberly Duncan. Kimberly, the director of product development, welcomes guests to the Cyberdyne Expo, explaining that the main showcase will take place in the auditorium that's in the next room. She then presents a video showcasing Cyberdyne's latest innovations. The video highlights Cyberdyne's extensive control over communication systems and its leadership in defense technology. It then introduces Skynet, a fully AI-operated weapons defense system capable of controlling the nation's nuclear arsenal. As the video continues, it is suddenly interrupted by John and Sarah Connor, who warn guests that Skynet must be destroyed. While Kimberly frantically tries to stop the transmission, Sarah Connor recaps the events of the second Terminator film and explains that guests have 5 minutes to exit the building. However, their transmission is cut off, and the Cyberdyne promotional video resumes. Kimberly apologizes for the interruption and guides guests into the auditorium to continue the Cyberdyne showcase. Once guests are seated, Kimberly takes the stage to discuss how armed combat has entered the age of robotics. She introduces the Series 70 Autonomous Infantry Units, also referred to as the Terminators. As she speaks, the Terminators begin to rise from the floor and take their positions along the sides of the auditorium. They prepare their weapons as targets are lowered and begin firing. As the demonstration concludes, the screen cover behind Kimberly raises to reveal the Cyberdyne logo. Kimberly then begins to discuss Skynet, but both John and Sarah Connor suddenly burst into the auditorium, causing alarms to go off. They fire their weapons and urgently warn guests that Skynet represents the end of the world and that they must stop it while they still can. Kimberly responds with a snarky comment, prompting Sarah Connor to fire her weapon in response, hitting the Cyberdyne logo. This reveals that the logo is actually the T-1000 in disguise. The T-1000 then emerges from the screen and onto the stage, escalating the situation. Kimberly, believing the T-1000 to be a part of the security team, makes snarky comments and attempts to address it with a false sense of confidence. However, the situation quickly deteriorates as the T-1000 kills Kimberly and takes control of the Terminators, directing them to fire at John and Sarah Connor. Before they can, however, the T-800 arrives on stage through a time portal on his motorcycle. He blasts the T-1000 with his shotgun, grabs John Connor, and drives back into the time portal, taking them to the future. Now on the 3D screen, it shows the T-800 and John Connor being chased by the T-1000 in the future. The chase ends with the T-800 promptly blowing the T-1000's head off. Afterwards, the T-800 and John Connor make their way toward the Skynet facility with intentions to infiltrate it. But they are spotted by a hunter-killer that begins firing at them. It blasts the motorcycle, destroying it, throwing both John Connor and the T-800 off. They then make their way into a nearby destroyed building, where a small group of mini-hunters begins to pursue them. As they are chased and fired upon, the T-800 shields John Connor, taking hits similar to the scene in Terminator 2 Judgment Day in the Galleria. Afterward, the T-800 takes out 3 of the mini-hunters. John Connor goes into hiding as the last mini-hunter searches for him, but it is ultimately grabbed by the T-800, who delivers a memorable line before smashing it into a pillar. After this, an original T-800 blasts through a wall, searching for life. It locks onto John Connor, and as it prepares to fire, the scene delivers one of the coolest 3D effects ever made as it gets destroyed. The T-800 takes its plasma rifle and grabs a bag of satchel charges before both him and John Connor make their way into the Skynet facility. Once inside, everything goes black. John asks where they are, to which the T-800 responds, home. An elevator then begins to lower, revealing the actors from earlier now back on stage. Once the elevator lowers completely, they discuss how they plan to destroy Skynet's CPU, or its brain. John asks what kind of defense system they have down here, and the T-800 replies,
"There's only one, but it's a good one. It's called the T-1000.
Introducing the T-1000, which morphs into a giant spider-like creature. A fight breaks out between the T-800 and the T-1000. As the battle intensifies, John notices a tank and asks the T-800 what's inside. He replies nitrogen, and then instructs the T-800 to shoot it, but only when the T-1000 is directly underneath. The T-800 blasts the tank at just the right moment, causing the auditorium to fill with smoke, and the T-1000 freezes. He then shoots it, causing the T-1000 to shatter into pieces. They quickly make their way to destroy the CPU, with the T-800 sending John Connor back to his time, saying his famous line,
I'll be back."
The T-800 then takes the charges and swings into the CPU. As he places the charges, he delivers another iconic line.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Upon blowing up the CPU, the auditorium fills with smoke and lights, and the seats even drop. The final scene shows a close-up of the T-800's skull on the screen, with narration from Sarah Connor reflecting on how she owes her life to the Terminator who saved John Connor, accompanied by the iconic theme music as the attraction concludes. Guests will exit the auditorium and into the Terminator gift shop. So now the question has to be answered, was this really Universal's greatest show? And I think the answer to that is yes. When we look at Terminator 2 3D, there's a lot to unpack. Not only is it faithful to its lore and acts as a compelling continuation of the franchise, something the films that followed struggled with, but this show also had the perfect blend of 3D and practical effects. With all these elements combined, Terminator 2 3D became more than just something to sit through to escape the heat. It became an attraction that people genuinely wanted to experience. One of the new elements I plan to incorporate into my videos is a deep dive into the finer details of what makes an attraction exceptional. Instead of merely highlighting some obvious features, I aim to provide a thorough exploration of why certain rides stand out. For instance, let's take a closer look at Terminator 2 3D and understand how it earned such high praise. Now, as I discussed in my last video, this period does predate the widespread use of themed lands. Now, while the exterior of Terminator 2 3D may not have been particularly striking, aside from Universal Studios Japan, which had the most impressive exterior. Universal was determined to make a significant impact. This attraction launched just 6 years after the park's grand opening, and still aimed to align with Universal's slogan of Ride the Movies. Unlike most shows of the time, which were confined to traditional stages and consisted mainly of stunts, Terminator 2 3D aimed to deliver a uniquely immersive experience. To dissect its success, we'll delve into 3 crucial elements: sight, smell, and sound. I know, it sounds like you're back in school, but these core aspects are vital in getting guests invested in the experience and making the attraction truly unforgettable. Beginning with sight, Terminator 2 3D offers an astonishing array of visuals that truly capture the audience's attention. This show isn't your typical theme park show. Rather, it is presented as a high-tech demo from the start, and in many ways, it lives up to that description. The brilliance of the presentation lies in its seamless integration of live actors, smoke effects, lighting, and other physical elements that it incorporates, all meticulously crafted to create an immersive experience. While many shows do incorporate these elements, it is the way in which Terminator 2 3D utilizes them that generates that ride the movie experience for which Universal was so proudly known for. Now, most shows do feature live actors, but again, Terminator 2 3D would elevate this concept in a unique way by plunging guests into the middle of the action. The entire performance is designed to make guests feel as though they are a part of the attraction rather than just mere spectators. This is particularly evident in the character of Kimberly Duncan, who serves a dual role similar to the Jaws skipper, acting as both comic relief and the audience's gateway into the world of the attraction, by providing context and keeping everyone engaged, even if they haven't seen the film. This approach allows for a level of fluidity that transcends the typical theme park shows. Moreover, by weaving a narrative that features familiar characters such as the T-800 and John Connor, the attraction fosters a deeper sense of attachment. This emotional connection makes it easier for the audience to become fully invested in the experience. Considering how other effects enhance the show, there's no doubt that when done correctly, smoke and lighting can elevate the experience, creating a more immersive environment for guests. Small details like smoke from the blown nitrogen tank, or the way lights pierce through during the elevator scene, blend seamlessly into the narrative, making it easy for guests to suspend disbelief. Finally, let's delve into the physical elements, which can be divided into practical effects and physical effects on the audience. While these details may seem minor, they are essential in selling the overall experience. For example, the use of convincing prop weapons by actors, complete with realistic muzzle flashes, works wonders in heightening that immersion. If those products weren't there, would it be as memorable? It's a pretty good question to ask, but more than likely, probably not. It also would make the weapons seem practically useless or just unrealistic overall. Another good example is when the T-800 emerges from the time portal on his motorcycle and grabs John Connor and speeds off back through. The excitement of this moment lies in the seamlessness of it. As guests watch those physical actors drive into the screen, they're gone, and then continue the action on it. Incorporating these physical set pieces significantly enhances the attraction's dynamic and overall feel. And that's something that I discuss a lot, and I'll continue to, is the importance of physical sets. And we're starting to see that now that the theme park industry is changing from this screen-based attraction platform to more physical sets. We're seeing that extremely prevalent in the upcoming opening of Epic Universe. Based on what Universal has showcased, things are looking like it's all about this immersive, physical set experience, albeit rides are starting to be more like Harry Potter the Forbidden Journey, but that is a step in the right direction, and I hope that that type of energy flows into Universal, a park that so desperately needs it, as it is plagued with screen attractions. And while Universal has worked to change that, at the end of the day, it still has a lot of those attractions, and I'd love to see that changed. Moving on though, the show features physical effects that directly engage the audience as well. This includes the water spray effect from when the T-1000 is exploded, and the slight drop of the seats after the T-800 destroys the Skynet CPU. These effects, combined with others, contribute to the overall immersive experience. They also serve as a pleasant surprise, acting a shock factor or a little bit of a wow factor, kind of surprising the guests. Let's turn our attention to the elements of smell and sound. I know this might sound weird, but bear with me. When I discuss the ET adventure, I mentioned how the pine scent in the queue immerses guests into ET's world. The same principle applies to Terminator 2 3D, though instead of the scent of pine, you'll get the scent of spent ammunition. This may not seem as inviting, but it's a clever way to reinforce the intense, action-packed atmosphere the show is presenting to guests. You'll notice this scent of spent ammunition throughout the attraction, probably when you first walk into the auditorium, but it's most prominent right after the Terminator robots fire at their targets. This is something that if you've ridden the attraction, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, when a sensory detail like this is tied so well to a moment, it creates a lasting memory, and scent is one of the strongest triggers for recall and one of the strongest abilities to immerse guests. Moving on to sound, this element can be broken down into two key areas. Sound mixing, so things like music and voice, and the effects of explosions, weapons, and other sounds. Terminator 2 3D excels here with the original actors voicing their lines while the stage actors perform, with the exception of Kimberly. The realistic firing sounds of weapons add another layer of immersion, making the experience all the more convincing. Additionally, the theme music is strategically played at key moments, heightening the drama and reinforcing the emotional impact of that scene, which makes each pivotal scene even more memorable. When you look at these elements individually, they may not seem like defining features of the attraction, but when combined, they create a symphony of sensory engagement that plays a crucial role in Terminator 2 3D's success. Sadly, Terminator 2 3D is no longer available at any of the existing Universal Park locations. It closed at Universal Studios Hollywood on January 1st, 2013, at Universal Studios Florida on October 9th, 2017, and at Universal Studios Japan on September 14th, 2020. It's an unfortunate situation as Terminator remains relevant today, despite recent debates about the quality of its movies following Judgment Day. The attraction resonated with many guests more deeply than some of its replacements. In Hollywood, it was succeeded by Minion Mayhem, in Florida by the Bourne Stuntacular, and in Japan by Detective Conan 4D. Even though the attraction has been removed, it continues to be a topic of discussion among theme park fans, underscoring the lasting impact it had. Alright, I knew coming into this video that I would need to discuss at least one of the successors to Terminator 2 3D, and that brings us to the Bourne Stuntacular in Florida. While I won't delve into this as deeply as I did with Terminator, as it could be its own video, it's worth noting that the Bourne Stuntacular is quite interesting. The attraction features impressive screens that blur that line between background and live action, creating a visually captivating experience. The story revolves around new surveillance technology, with guests following Jason Bourne as he performs various stunts and engages in fights around the globe. While the attraction is not bad by any means, and is what I feel a decent and fitting replacement for Terminator 2 3D, its choice is somewhat questionable, especially when comparing the relevancy of Jason Bourne to that of Terminator, as Jason Bourne's latest film came out in 2016 and Terminator's in 2019. I personally feel Terminator holds greater relevance, but that might come down to personal opinion. Regardless, the Bourne Stuntacular is a unique attraction. Though its selection as a replacement remains an intriguing decision, it's a great show overall. So thank you guys for your continued support. Don't forget to subscribe and keep an eye out for the next video poll, as you could be the deciding factor for what next attraction is covered.